Greg, thanks.
Thank you, Dominic. Is that okay? That's not too low? Yeah. So thanks everyone for coming along to the Caspin Resources story. Caspin hasn't been around for very long. We listed in November last year. Quick corporate overview. There's probably only a couple of things you need to take out of this slide. Firstly, have a look at those substantial shareholders. Chalice Gold Mines, everyone knows the Chalice story, one of the success stories of 2020, 2021, and probably 2022. We're rapt to have them on our share register. They're obviously a strategic shareholder. We've got a great relationship with Chalice, and I guess we're all sort of learning a bit from each other at the same time. But also number two there, Tianqi Materials, who you may not be aware of. They're a large chemical company based in mainland China. And why are they on our register? Well, they're trying to get exposure into the nickel metal, battery metal sector here in Australia. They're worth $15 billion US, listed in Shenzhen. So to have a company of that sort of quality in little old Caspin Resources is just fantastic, because it gives us a lot of firepower if we ever need a significant cash injection in the future. We're well funded. We did raise $10 million through those and our other significant shareholders in July. So that allows us to be pretty aggressive with our exploration. We're pretty hands-on. You can see there's a photo of a board out on site not too long ago. You're probably familiar with some of those faces. John Oronsky, middle picture there, world leader in nickel exploration, well, nickel, gold, you name it, exploration. And some other names well known in the industry. So two assets, the Yarawindah Brook project, which is probably the main focus for the company at the moment and the main focus of this talk. But we also have another project, Mount Squires, which is kind of actually perhaps more relevant for this conference, which we'll touch on as well. And I guess we also have what we consider the third asset in the company. It's a leftover of the takeover from Cassini by Oz Minerals last year, in which if there's any sort of further transactions on the West Musgrave project, then Caspin is potentially exposed to up to $20 million contingent cash payment. Now, there's obviously a whole pile of thresholds that need to be met, which you can read about in your leisure. So Yarawindah Brook project, the main focus for this talk, and great invention by Google Earth allows us to do funky little videos. So as you know, not far from Perth, just an hour up the road, about 40 kilometres from Chalice's Julimar project. We are operating in agricultural land between the townships of New Norcia and Kalingaree. So as you can see, it's farmland. This somewhat serves as our ESG slide. We're essentially operating in farmers' backyards. So to get to this point, to actually drill a hole in a paddock like that takes a long period of negotiation, access agreements. We've got a fantastic working relationship with the farmers out there. It allows us to work all year round. And we thank them for their support. Now, you might be wondering, we're obviously following the Chalice stories, which is, primarily a PGE story. But I guess, and this is what you'll see in our talk, is that whilst our kind of immediate focus is probably at the more of the PGE end member of the orthomagmatic exploration target or mineralisation styles, we are cognizant of the fact that we have prospective rocks for massive nickel copper sulphide. So I guess that's how we fit into this this program. There's something for everybody really with Yarawindah Brook. So there we go, just up the road. I guess the thing to note is that there has been some historical exploration on Yarawindah Brook. Goes back to the 70s and 80s, back when Shell Minerals was looking for minerals. And that gave us a bit of insight to the fact that we are prospective for these PGEs. Very sporadic kind of exploration history. I mean, it serves a purpose for showing that you've got potential, but it is really a patchwork quilt of a database that's out there. So we've been really aggressive in our exploration campaigns. As you can see through that slide, a number of phases of exploration, I guess initially geophysically driven, but geochemistry works a treat in this property, despite the fact that these fields have been tilled for 100 years. Conventional soil geochemistry works perfectly well, so that's another valuable tool. And we're also at the stage now where we're starting to test some of those geophysical and geochemical targets, and we've now done. Well, we're in our second phase of drilling, and there's more of that to come. So Yarrabrook Hill, that's the main focus for us at Yarawindah at the moment. That's the historical site. You can see the figure on the right sort of shows where some of the historical exploration has been before. I mean, it looks like a lot of holes, and I guess it is, but the depth of that drilling is actually quite shallow. So it's not as much as it looks, and to be honest, there's been not all of it's been assayed for PGE. Some of it was assayed for nickel copper, some of it was assayed for PGs only. So it's useful, and most of it's only shallow. So it was, for whatever reason, the purpose of the exploration programs at the time was to define this near surface kind of mineralisation. Our initial program was 2 holes, holes 17 and 18, you can see there, to demonstrate that PGE mineralisation that's found over 2 kilometres worth of strike on surface actually extends into the bedrock. And you know, well, I guess we can also then start to get a sense for what the underlying geology was. And that, as a proof of concept into this style of mineralisation, it ticked all our boxes. We had the right rocks, so mafic gabbros through to ultramafic periddotites, all the suite of sulfides that we're looking for, nickel, copper, PGEs, you know, admittedly over relatively short intervals, but that hole that we demonstrate there, hole 17, is essentially completely anomalous in PGEs, in palladium in particular. So that's a large volume of rock with a large volume of anomalous metal. And I guess what we learned was that some of that mineralisation, you can see that sort of narrow, higher grade mineralisation is perhaps more shear zone related, but we also find a sort of an in situ disseminated style of mineralisation, which is perhaps the main game. And look, that's probably what we're looking for. We're looking for the sweet spot within this large volume of rock, like I said, 2 kilometres worth of strike, that has essentially never really been tested below 50, 60, 70 metres below surface. So whilst we've been doing that though, geophysical programs, and I guess what the last program we did was a gravity survey, and this has really been a turning point for us because it's provided us a window into what the subsurface looks like, and we were previously just using magnetics to guide us on where the boundaries of the intrusion was, but gravity survey measures the difference in the density of rocks. So mafic, ultramafic rocks contrast beautifully against the lighter or less dense sediments and granites. And what we're able to find is that Yarrabrook Hill intrusion is probably 2 to 3 times larger than what we originally thought. So, you know, that's just increased our search space significantly. And I guess if you want to get a sense of scale, it's actually roughly on a similar sort of scale to Chalice's Julimar project. So Yarawindah Brook or Yarrabrook Hill is actually, you know, really quite a significant intrusion. And I guess what that survey also tells us is that it's also given us a bit more context for some of the other data sets that we're collecting. So whilst all this has been going on, we've collected soil geochem, we've been flying airborne magnetics, electromagnetics, sorry. And so some of these anomalies that we had observed, we now recognised, so the northwest anomaly there, east anomaly, the marketing team took the day off this day. We just had to use location sort of for our anomalies. We now find that they sit within the footprint of this intrusion. So they're not just sort of you know, spurious kind of anomalies out on the sides of it, away from our areas of understanding. We actually now have greater context for what those anomalies mean. And likewise with the airborne EM, XC22 was actually an anomaly that we first identified a couple of years ago, but sort of discredited it because we didn't think it actually represented a bedrock source. But now that we know that it's within the footprint of that intrusion, then it's obviously come up a lot higher in our list of priorities. So this survey has actually generated a whole range of targets, and I guess. And here's our geological model, if you like. Not only have we been able to think about the simple things about where's the edge of our intrusion, but credit to John and the rest of our technical team for we can now start to see the internal stratigraphy of this intrusion as well. It's quite complex. We can see that it's been overturned in parts. But I guess probably importantly, and there's two sort of key features on this slide on the right-hand side, the drilling in the past, I said it was only shallow, is a mere postage stamp on the entire volume of rock that's potentially prospective. And within that volume of rock, probably the basal contact where you would kind of likely expect to see accumulation of sulfides hasn't really been tested at all. And I guess if I was to go back, so that's potentially where that northwest anomaly and that east anomaly actually sit on that, where we interpret those basal position of that intrusion is. So, that's really exciting for us. We a huge leap forward, and we're looking forward now to going out and drilling those targets, which we'll get to in a sec. But and then beyond Yarnbrook Hill as well, I mean, we've only tested about 35% of the project area with our soil geochem. We're yet to fly the rest of the project. We've flown about half the project area with airborne EM. But the work we've done already has already generated all these other interesting PGE, nickel and copper anomalies. Most of these anomalies, I'm only showing the palladium, platinum, so combined PGE here, but most of them also have coincident nickel and copper as well. So there's all these anomalies elsewhere in the project area that we're sort of yet to explore. And I guess Yarrawindah Hill stands out. It's a very, it's an absolute bullseye geochem anomaly, but it is also where mineralisation outcrops essentially. And we won't actually discredit any of these other anomalies at the moment because we're still learning about the regolith profile. And I guess what we have recognised in our drilling to date is that there is or can be significant leaching at the surface. So some of these lower order anomalies, I've got anything greater than 10 as being magenta there. 10 is still 10 times background. So 10 times background any day of the week is anomalous. So there's a lot more room for us to find other significant intrusions and potentially mineralisation. So where we're at the moment, we started our drill program, 3,000 metres done to date. We had to suspend drilling for a period because, as everybody knows, it's been extremely wet in Perth and our neighbouring agricultural regions. So we did what we could in terms of access. The 11 holes that we've done to date are still at the lab. We expect them to start coming in from now. So pretty excited by that. And we're also planning to get back out and recommence our drill program later this month. So, and that'll be completing our initial targets, plus all these new targets that I've just been talking about, the new geochem targets, EM targets. So there's a lot to look forward to, and including a very deep diamond hole through the intrusion all the way. West Core Drilling, who are here today, they're going to drill that for us, and that is partly funded by WA government's EIS program. So cheap exploration, but very important exploration. And look, I think I've covered everything here, but this is really the early stages of a new mineral province. We're all in a really, Chalice and ourselves are all in a very steep learning curve. It reminds me a little bit of the early stages of the Fraser Range after the Nova Bollinger discovery. I think there's plenty of opportunity and upside left in the project. Now, just quickly before I wrap up, the Mount Squires project, completely the opposite to Yarawindah. It's out in the more remote parts of Western Australia, although this is not the most remote part of Western Australia I think I've operated in. That gong goes to Kirakara, if anybody knows where that is. But So this is straight up the Great Central Road. Actually, access is pretty good into our Mount Squires project. Look, as you can see there, it's desert kind of country, but the sand cover is actually relatively shallow. Now, why is this relevant to the nickel conference? We are on the doorstep of West Australia's great sleeper nickel project, which is, of course, Nebo-Babel, operated now by Oz Minerals. Funnily enough, there's probably more contained nickel, well, not probably, there is more contained nickel at Nebo-Babel than every other speaker on the program, bar Nickel West. So, and then we're sitting right next door, in fact, a long strike from that province. So, that's an interesting strategic position for us to be in. We've sort of got two focuses here, both probably a copper gold kind of focus. Probably is probably a first target, but we're highly cognizant of the fact that I think this is a new nickel copper province into the future. Look, I guess everyone sometimes gets a bit scared with desert kind of environments, but it's reasonably benign. The sand cover is not that thick. We're actually looking to do a soil geochem program out there in the not too distant future. So that's the two sort of two halves to the project. The eastern side is sort of more of a nickel copper focus, a long strike from Nebo-Babel, hand pump, and what we call now the Duchess prospect is more of a copper gold sort of focus. And we know, and this isn't just neurology, we know that those host rocks that host Nebo-Babel extend onto our project area. So the One Tree Hill prospect, which was discovered by Caspin Resources, part of the team that I was previously involved with, only 200 metres from our tenement boundary. We know that those rocks extend into our Mount Squires project. So, One Tree Hill is more of a copper prospect at the moment, but we think there's excellent prospectivity for nickel in that extension of rocks as well. And in the meantime, we'll also keep an open mind towards this really interesting sort of area that we've called Duchess. This has probably been where the most historical focus has been on exploration in the past. At hand pump, that was recognised by Bedell early 2000s. Sorry, Western Mining even before that. But we've recognised in our soil geochemistry a kind of a porphyry copper kind of signature. And so zoned moly, lead, gold and copper around what we call the Duchess prospect. And so that's really interesting. It shows that our soil sampling works. So the ultrafine fraction works a treat out here. We're going to look towards extending our soil program as well as doing a reconnaissance style drill program in the not too distant future. So to wrap up, why should you buy a Caspin share? Look, obviously we've got pole position in the what some people are now calling the West Yilgarn province, where we're sitting on the same belt of rocks as Chalice. I think we've already demonstrated the prospectivity of those rocks. We've got our first batch of assay results coming up in the not too distant future. Meanwhile, all these new data sets are showing that perhaps our best targets haven't even been tested yet. So looking forward to getting our drill rigs back out there, particularly through the summer season. There's a lot of work to do. We're going to have a very busy end to 2021, leading into 2022. Mount Squires, look, we treat it as our second project, but I think it could be a leading project in a number of other companies. We're well funded, well supported, experienced team. Dominic, I think I'll leave it there.